In this lesson, moving forward, I'm going to talk about what a router is. We understand the basic concepts of physical devices such as hubs and switches, which essentially do the same job. They route traffic. The hub broadcasts traffic once it receives it from the server and then broadcasts to other nodes. The switch does the same thing but does it more intelligently. Router is one of the same devices that carries the same functions but more functionality to it. So let's take a look at what a router is all about. In essence, a router is a device that simply forwards data packets along networks. It's connected to at least two networks. Could be local area networks or wide area networks. The routers are located at gateways, right? So these are the gatekeepers, right, for your traffic, the places where two or more networks connect. A router is a device that, again, forwards data packets between computer networks, creating an overlay inner network. So here's a device basically that keeps track of all of the addresses on the network. So for instance, let's say you live in a subdivision which has about 300 homes. So the router would know exactly who lives in which home. So in other words, which address belongs to which owner, and that's what the router essentially does. So in this diagram we have two routers, router A and router B, and they're connected to different subnets, for instance, or different networks. And each networks can have their own physical devices such as hubs and switches. So the router, using different ports, can simply send traffic from one subnet to the other, one network to the other, and so on. And it keeps a table, also known as the routing table. So this table sort of tells the router that next time a message comes that belongs to a similar IP, it just sends and forwards it. It doesn't have to check to see whether it's the right address or address resolution needs to take place or not. Some of the basic functionality of routers: it's simply connected to two or more data lines from different networks. We talked about that. So here's the situation. When a data packet comes in one of the lines, right, the router reads the address information in the packet, the data packet, to determine its ultimate destination. The data packet is typically forwarded from one router to another through the networks that constitute the inner network until it gets to its destination node. So for instance, if I were to send you an email and I'm in the US and you're in Europe, for example, it's going to pass on the actual email through different routers across various networks. Another functionality of the router is that it contains a routing table, as I mentioned earlier briefly, in which all of the information about the address of connected networks exists. So these are very intelligent piece of hardware that knows exactly what's going on, who resides where. So why do we use routers in addition to hubs and switches? Well, router limits the collision domain, so the packets are not colliding with each other and there's no data loss. Routers can function on a local area network and wide area networks as well. They can connect different media and architectures. Routers can determine best path or route for data to reach the destination. And routers can also filter the broadcasts as well. So there are numerous advantages of using routers. The disadvantage, of course, is that they're very expensive. For example, Cisco is a huge manufacturer of routers, and they're famous routers that they have been creating since a long time, and they work very efficiently. And there are other companies as well that make routers. Some of the disadvantages I wanted to mention: that obviously they're more expensive than hub, bridge, and switch. Bridge, by the way, is another hardware device that acts similar to hubs and switches. Routers only works with routable protocol. So if you're using TCP/IP, for example, perfect, you can use a router. Routing updates consumes bandwidth. Network traffic is going to increase because it's going to refresh the list of all the IP addresses that it contains. Also increases the latency due to greater degree of packet filtering. So the more stringent your policies are on your router, for example, it's going to need to do more work and filter more packets, which obviously is going to slow down your network traffic as well. So in this lesson, we just talked about what a router is, the basic functions of the router, and the advantages and disadvantages of using routers as well. So I hope this helps. Let's move to the next lesson.